This presentation is a product of the Office of Recruitment, Preparation, and Induction. My name is Margie Wood, and I work in new teacher support with Tanisha Davis and the RPI team. This is intended to be a foundational training for new mentors or those needing a refresher. It provides support to districts needing to begin the process of training mentors to be able to quickly hit the ground running. This is our agenda, and the agenda will keep coming up so you can see the next topics that we'll be working on. This training is intended to cover the minimum training requirements. Each district will have its own mentor training requirements. You may want to try and integrate the training you get here with the training your district already has. It's especially important, and we'll emphasize this again, that more in-depth training on the New Jersey Student Learning Standards and the district's evaluation instrument be conducted by the district. So that is part of the required training and will have to take place in the district. So we're going to just take a quick review of mentoring regulations. They were revised in 2014 to make them more adaptable to district needs and to ensure that effective one-to-one mentoring takes place. This is the mentoring requirements as they appear in the New Jersey Administrative Code. There's two parts that I'm going to show you. One is the requirement that there be mentor training and that there be one-to-one mentoring for new teachers. It does give you the criteria for a mentor, what a mentor has to have in order to be a mentor. You have to have a certification. It says when possible to be in the same grade and or topic as the mentee. We realize that's not always possible, but as close as and as often as is possible, it's helpful. It's important to note that in the public school requirements for a mentor, they are not required to be on staff. However, non-public school requirements do make it necessary that the mentor be on staff in the non-public school, which differs from the public school. So this training is intended to fulfill some of this mentor training requirements. And then again, as said before, the rest should be done in the district. Benefits of mentoring are manyfold. Some of them actually are shown to save money, increase student achievement. For the mentors themselves, mentor training has been shown to help mentors become stronger, more reflective practitioners, become adept at moving in and out of various mentor roles, creating a professional growth environment through a climate of collaboration. This is really a key point in that many teachers who leave within the first 5 years, and that goes up to 50% of new teachers leave within the first 5 years, cite not pay, but the environment in which they're working, and that a collaborative environment, one where people work together and achieve professional growth together, tends to have a better retention rate than schools that don't have that environment. So mentors really help create that environment while investing in the next generation of teachers and sustaining that culture of collaborative learning. According to a study by WestEd, today's teachers are expected to help the most diverse student population in our history meet the highest education standards we have ever set. And in the process, they're expected to serve all students equally well. I don't think I need to tell experienced teachers this. This is the environment that we're teaching in now, made even more difficult by current circumstances. Students don't come out of educator training programs able to do this. They need to learn by degrees, and that's where our mentors come in. And actually, you know, I say here that the attrition rate for minority candidates is higher, and one of the things they support, what they cite, is feeling isolated, unsupported, and unheard as reasons for leaving the teaching profession. Also, they tend to be assigned the more difficult schools and more difficult classrooms. The mentoring is crucial to keep teachers of color in the classroom, and that becomes an equity issue. So we're going to move on to evaluation, and this is going to be a very brief review because most of the teacher evaluation training is going to come from your district. Evaluation tools and how they are used differs by district, and evaluation protocols in the state and in districts can change from year to year. So it's very crucial that the training on the evaluation system come from the districts themselves. Achieve NJ is the regulations and statute that governs how teachers are evaluated in the school. More information is available on the Achieve NJ website. In order to access training materials for understanding student growth objectives, there is a resource presented that's on the Achieve NJ website. There are quite a few approved evaluation instruments. Your district has an approved evaluation instrument. I have presented a list of all of the websites for these instruments just as supportive documentation to help mentors train their mentees on the use of the instrument. Mentors should be able to provide mentees with training and insight into their district's evaluation instrument. All mentors should receive in-depth training on their district's evaluation system. And again, the resources for the major evaluation systems, for example, the Danielson and the Morzano, are at the end of the presentation. And they do have great resources for helping train people on how those instruments are implemented. The important parts of training on the evaluation instrument, again, work with your school administration. There are goals in your framework for evaluation. You should train mentees on the components of that framework, how it is organized, how you use it in the school in the curriculum and lesson planning, what the expectations are for teacher practice that derive from that evaluation instrument, the role of data in the framework. Mentees may be very weak in gathering and analyzing relevant and useful student data. So that's going to be a very important role for the mentor to help that mentee in using data to be the most effective. And you want to make sure that you're all on the same page about any changes in evaluation and evaluation protocols that result from any potential hybrid or remote instruction that comes about in the current situation. So the next section is the professional standards for teachers. The professional standards for teachers are detailed and specific. It is key to know what's behind those standards in order to understand how the standards were derived. So the next slides show you the fundamental understandings that resulted in the professional standards. The fundamental understandings are the foundational ideas from which the standards were derived. They inform how the standards were developed and how they should be implemented. The most important thing about these fundamental understandings is to try and illustrate how they look in your school. So picking out how teacher practice in your school reflects these fundamental understandings and the professional standards will be an important part of mentor training. The standards can be found in administrative code and the link is provided. Standards articulate what effective teaching and learning look like in a public education system, and the system that it idealizes and one that empowers every learner to take ownership of their learning, emphasizes the application of knowledge and skill to real-world problems, values the differences each learner brings to the learning experience, and leverages rapidly changing learning environments by recognizing the possibilities they bring to maximize learning and engage learners. These are very high concept standards. They're ideals. Mentors should know the mission and vision of the school and the district as they reflect these standards so that everybody is working on the same values. These are the professional standards for teachers. The last box, all the way on the lower right, contains the components of all of the standards. Everybody should understand that these standards are the ideals and that teachers come to them incrementally and get better and better at them as they become more and more experienced teachers. Next on the agenda are the student learning standards. New Jersey Student Learning Standards. It's always good to make sure that you and your mentee are up to date on the standards as they do change. For example, most recently, environmental strands were added to the New Jersey Student Learning Standards. The standards are intended to describe what students should know and be able to do at the completion of a 13-year public education. They provide the foundation for local district curricula that is used by teachers in the development of their daily lesson plans. And this is where mentors really become crucial for mentees, is helping understand those student learning standards, how the district unpacks them, in order for them to be able to create lesson plans that they're comfortable with and can be as creative as possible with. The student learning standards provide school districts with clear and specific benchmarks for student achievement in 9 content areas. So again, you want to review how the student learning standards are unpacked in your district. You want to focus on the main steps that have to be followed to achieve what the standards require. Identify key concepts and skills. It's very important for new teachers to be able to understand how to translate those concepts and skills into lesson planning. Identify what students students need to know and what they need to do. It can be helpful to take time to highlight the nouns, which are the content, and the verbs, which are the skills that are in the standards, so that mentees have a basis for developing their lesson plans. And you also want to help them identify the learning target types. The concepts are content and knowledge targets, reasoning and cognitive targets, skill and performance targets, and product targets. New Jersey Student Learning Standards. You want to help these mentees determine big ideas. You want to help them list the conceptual understandings that students discovered during the learning process, sort of the aha moments. Identify foundational concepts that will lead to the discovery of those aha moments. Help mentees write essential questions. Focus and guide classroom instruction and assessment. They should be writing open-ended questions to help stimulate student interest and make new connections. Mentees should prepare backup questions for complex concepts if the students seem to be struggling with understanding. Ensure that the mentee can demonstrate correct use of the district's lesson planning, pacing guide, and other protocols for lesson planning, and especially the lesson planning software. Share the district and the school's formative and summative assessment and grading guidelines. As you must be aware, if you've been a mentor, mentees often struggle with formative assessments that give them the kind of data they need, student data they need, in order to assess student learning. It would be helpful for mentors to provide examples for various concepts in the New Jersey Student Learning Standards and work with the mentee to develop lesson plans, assessments, etc. Whenever possible, involve the mentee in collaborative curriculum work, PLCs, or any type of other collaborative organizations you have in your district. As soon as possible, involve new teachers so they can A, feel a part of the process, and B, start learning on their own how to implement these curriculum standards. Next, it's sort of the crux of mentoring, which are peer observations and providing feedback. Observations are the most crucial part of mentoring. Observation give both mentor and mentee ways to gain confidence and growth. And this is the basic cycle. This is the basic observation cycle. Really starts in the blue, assessing needs and planning instruction that you'll do with your mentee, then the observation, then the reflection and revision stage, and then going back to assessing needs and planning instruction. Classroom observation is the crucial aspect of mentoring new teachers. Observations can be live. The mentor sits in the classroom observing specific aspects of the class. This works well for particular types of observations, such as data collection using checklists, tick marks, etc. And there are lots of resources on how to collect data while sitting in the classroom. And it requires no equipment, no parent permissions, etc. There are taped observations. Videotaping must follow district protocols, and you should be knowledgeable about district policies regarding these non-evaluative videotapings. Make sure your mentor understands that all observations you do, whether in person or taped, are non-evaluative and will strictly be between you and the mentee and not seen or shared by anyone else. Videotaping has certain benefits. Mentees can see on their own what their strengths and areas for growth are. It does provide a shared record that you can go back to for constructive and actionable meetings. It's more detailed and reliable than written notes and creates conditions for less defensive feedback. You're both seeing the same thing. It facilitates review of student patterns in the classroom. For example, who's responding? Is there a particular type of student, a part of the room? Are students engaged? Are they doing meaningful group work? And it enables mentees to see new aspects of their students' behavior and engagement with instructional content. It's sometimes surprising for people who see their videotape to find out what's going on with students they're not focused on at that moment in the lesson. And it creates a safe environment in which to review classroom management, which is something that many new teachers struggle with on a daily basis. Again, just want to be very careful about making sure that the mentee knows that the videotape lessons are for viewing and used by the mentor and mentee only, and that you follow district policy and guidelines and protocols, especially, if you have very young students in the classroom. Even with a videotape or with in-person, you always want to make sure that you and the mentee are looking at the same focus for that videotaped or observed lesson. So when you do classroom observations, you want to make sure you have that meaning first, that needs assessment that you saw in that cycle. Mentor and mentee should collaborate on selecting specific skill or set of skills to focus on. Tie that selected skill to your performance framework if you can. Where does that come from? Why is that an important skill? Be specific about what you expect to see in the classroom and what you'll be reviewing both pre and post observation. What are you looking for in that particular observation? And you really want to look for learning, not teaching. So again, it should be student-centered. Is it apparent what the teacher wants the students to learn? Does that teacher know that the students are learning? And how does the teacher respond if students are not engaged, not understanding, or somehow not learning what that lesson is supposed to convey? What's easy to see in an observation, are the students engaged? If they aren't, how long does it take the students to get back on task? Is the content challenging them enough to stretch their learning? Do they seem bored? Is an important part of a classroom observation. Again, does the teacher make it clear throughout the lesson what the students are supposed to be learning? Is the classroom participation even? Is it equitable? Are teachers varying whom they call on? Are they giving enough time to allow students to answer? Again, this is a thing that many new teachers struggle with. They get impatient. They are uncomfortable with silence in the classroom. So this is an important part of the observation. Are they varying their question types to include factual, divergent, and higher order questions? And again, is student participation equitably distributed? Does the teacher have rapport with all the students? Do all students appear confident and connected? So it's very important for these observations to remain student-centered. Look for the relationship between learning tasks, student engagement, and the teacher's content knowledge and pedagogical skill. Is the task related to standards? Is it relevant to the students? And does it connect to prior and future student learning? Is it structured so that students can build on prior knowledge? Is it scaffolded? Observe student engagement. Who is engaged? And what is the level of student ownership of their learning? Are they actively involved in their own learning? And watch out for things like group work just to do group work when you do classroom observations, either in person or taped, especially with the tape ones. Same thing with turn and talk and other engagement activities that don't result in an intended outcome. Are they activities that are intended to involve students just for the sake of some kind of activity in the classroom, or do they actually go towards achieving the goals of the lesson? There's lots of different ways of gathering descriptive data. Classroom observation is an evidence-gathering activity. Mentors and mentees need objective, descriptive, and unbiased data to support teacher improvement. Again, agree on a focus for the observation and agree on the type of data that you will collect. And there are different resources and forms available, any of the forms that show how to gather this information. Certainly, I can provide them on request, and I will give you my email address at the end of this presentation so that you can receive any of the forms that show how to gather this information.